Welcome to The Explainer. So, you want to teach English. Today, we're going to decode the secret language of the pros, turning all that confusing jargon into a powerful toolkit you can actually use.
I mean, think about it. You're a fluent English speaker. Teaching it should be a total breeze, right? It's just talking. How hard can it be?
And then you open up the first teacher's guide, and bam, you're hit with this wall of words. Fossilization, backwash, interlanguage. It feels like this exclusive club with a secret code, and you're not in on it.
But here's the thing. What if that's not a wall to keep you out? What if it's actually a blueprint? The key to understanding how to be a really effective teacher.
All right, so let's start breaking down this blueprint. And the very first piece, maybe the most important one, is getting inside the head of your learner.
Okay, first up, a really key distinction. Acquisition versus learning. Think about your first language. You didn't learn it from a book, did you? You just picked it up. That's acquisition. Learning, on the other hand, that's the deliberate stuff. The grammar charts, the vocabulary lists. And for a teacher, knowing which one you're trying to create in the classroom, well, that changes everything.
Which leads us right into this amazing concept called interlanguage. It's the perfect way to think about a student's progress. It's not bad English. It's their own unique developing language system. Like a bridge they're building, piece by piece, from their first language over to English. It has its own logic, its own rules. It's a system in motion.
And on that bridge, you're going to see things that aren't quite standard English yet. But this is crucial. We need to separate errors from mistakes. A mistake, that's just a slip. You're tired, you're not paying attention. But an error is gold. It's systematic. It shows you exactly how the student's internal rulebook is working at that moment. It's a diagnostic tool.
Now, sometimes one of those errors gets cemented in place. It stops evolving. That's what we call fossilization. The learner's English is just good enough for their daily needs, so that particular mistake just stays. It becomes a permanent fossil in their interlanguage.
Here's a classic example of the brain's logic at work. A learner figures out the ED rule for past tense. Great! So, disheartened becomes disheartened. Perfect. But that same logic, when applied everywhere, leads to things like misunderstand it. See, that's not a random guess. That's overgeneralization. It's the brain trying to make sense of the new language by applying a rule it's already learned. It's smart, just not right in this case.
Okay, so we've got a peek inside the learner's brain. But what's the end game? Well, it's moving beyond just words and grammar to what this is all about: real communication.
And that brings us to the idea of function. You see, language isn't just a collection of words. It's a tool we use to get things done. So if I ask, have you got a pencil, am I really asking about what's in your pencil case? Nope. The function of that sentence is a request. Can I borrow a pencil? It's about the purpose, not the literal words.
And this goes even deeper with something called illocutionary force. It's the hidden intention. So someone says, "It's cold in here." On the surface, it's a statement about the temperature, but the force behind it is probably a request. "Hey, could you close the window?" Or, "Let's turn on the heat." Teaching students to understand this hidden layer is huge.
Okay, so we understand our learner's mind, and we know our goal is real communication. So, what does that mean for us in the classroom? What's in the teacher's toolkit?
Well, one of the biggest choices you'll make is your approach. Are you going to be deductive? That means you give the rule first. Here's the rule for the present perfect, and then they practice. Or are you going to be inductive, where you give them a bunch of examples and, like detectives, they have to figure out the rule for themselves? Two very different ways to learn.
And these approaches fit into bigger philosophies or methodologies. I mean, we've moved on from the days of grammar translation, which was all about translating literature. Then there was audiolingualism, with all its drills. "Repeat after me!" But today, the big one is CLT, or communicative language teaching. The name says it all. The number one goal is successful communication, even if it's not grammatically perfect.
And a fantastic tool for CLT is something called Realia. It sounds technical, but it just means real stuff. Instead of a fake worksheet menu, bring in a real menu from a local restaurant. Use a real bus schedule, a real event brochure. It makes the language immediate, relevant, and way more engaging. Okay, so you've used all these awesome tools, your students are communicating, but how do you know it's actually working? How do we measure success? This is where we have to talk about a really powerful phenomenon called backwash, or washback. Think about it.
The final test has a huge effect on what happens in the classroom. If the test is just a bunch of multiple-choice grammar questions, guess what gets practiced in class? But if the test involves a real conversation or writing a real email, then the teaching naturally shifts to focus on those real-world skills. The test shapes the teaching.
And of course, not all tests are the same. We use different tests for different jobs. A placement test is to figure out the right class level for a new student. A diagnostic test helps you pinpoint their specific strengths and weaknesses. An achievement test measures what they've learned from your course. And a proficiency test, that checks if their English is good enough for a specific task, like studying at a university.
Okay, ready for a quick quiz? Let's see what stuck. The term for picking up a language naturally, just through exposure, what's that called?
Acquisition. If you said acquisition, you are absolutely right.
All right, one more for you. What do we call that test that helps put students into the right group?
A placement test. Exactly. See, you've got this.
So you see, this isn't just a list of random terminology. This is the language of a professional. Knowing this stuff is what lets you diagnose problems, make smart choices in the classroom, and really understand your student's journey. It elevates you from just being a fluent speaker to being a professional teacher.
So now you have the blueprint. You've got a peek into the secret language of English teaching. The question is, what's the first thing you're going to build with it?